Good evening. Welcome to the second session of the day. So in this session, we have Professor Subbarao sir with us. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation.
Thank you.
Uh, Before you start the session, sir, I invite Dr. Vijay Lakshmi Madam, Principal, University College of Law and Chairman, Board of Studies, Osmania University, to introduce the speaker to the participants.
Briefly introduce our resource person for today's session, that is Professor T. Subbarao sir. Sir started his career as law teacher in 1978, and he was been awarded as he was being made as the professor in 1992. He is considered as a good teacher, able academician, and efficient administrator. Professor has marked contributions in rationalizing and strengthening the administrative reforms and the systems in universities in which he worked, that is the Padmavati Mahila University. He has been instrumental in facilitating the university's access to funds under various schemes of the UGC and from other agencies. He held many academic, administrative, and supervisory posts in the university system. Among them, few of them are he acted as a visiting professor, director, research and development council, chairperson, postgraduate council, National Law School of India, University Bangalore, formerly chairperson, undergraduate council, NLSIU, acted as a coordinator for the test conducted for recruitment on behalf of the Competition Commission of India from 2011 to 2013 under the aegis of National Law School of India University. Uh, Sir was also formerly coordinator for ENVIS Center of Environmental Law and Policy, NLSIU 2017-18, and he is also OSD for CLAT Consortium of Universities in 2019. He was first rector in 2005 and he held up to 2007 and first Dean CDC from 2007 to 10 and first Dean Academic Affairs in the year 2005. First Director Distance Education Center for 2000 to 2005 and Dean School of Social Sciences from 1999 to 2001. First Secretary and Coordinator for the Pre-Exam Coaching Center 1993 to 1994. First Coordinator SPM VB SET 1996. Sir is also the head of the department from 1992 to 2010 and head in charge of Department of Business Administration from 2019 to 2001. Sorry, 1999 to 2001. He acted as a license officer for PRC in SP MVB 2004, member standing board of inquiry 1994 to 2008, member of EC and Senate ex officio for 2006 to 2007, member standing committee of academic senate and member university research committee, all in Sri Padmavati Mahila Vishwavidyalayam, Tirupati, and Sir has been 5 times nominated as the convener of lawsuit by the government of Andhra Pradesh. He was also a member standing board of inquiry for SV University from 2014 to 2015, and he's also coordinator for 15th orientation program conducted by the Academic Staff College and formerly member board of studies in law for different universities like Osmania and Andhra University, Nagarjuna University, SK University, Kakatiya University, University of Mysore, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, Chennai, and University of Pondicherry. He is also the faculty board of faculty board in law, Osmania University, and Bangalore University. Sir was a visiting fellow for the UGC, and he's also member for ANU AP member Finance Committee, Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapeeth, Deemed University, Chairperson Academic Review Committee in Law and Central University Tamil Nadu. Sir is having a very vast administrative experience. As far as the teacher is concerned, sir is able teacher and is well known and loved by all the students. And sir has been conferred with the State Award for Teachers by the Government of Andhra Pradesh in the year 1999-2000. His services are highly sought by the institution and professional bodies. He is a regular trainer for various officers on behalf of DPT, Government of India, NADT, NTRPI, NACEN, and other public sector undertakings. He delivered the Muthu Krishna Iyer Endowment Lecture on the legal status of women under constitutional law and personal laws at Department of Legal Studies, University of Madras. Sir has trained a number of people in various institutions like the subjects like constitutional law, international law, human rights law, family law, ancient law in India, law relating to cyber crime. And Sir is very much interested in the subjects like women in law and research methodology, and he's continually taking lectures or on these two particular topics. Uh, Professor Roy also contributed for the development of curriculum in law in the capacity of Chairman Board of Studies in various universities. Sir has a number of good publications, and he wrote 2 books, edited 6 books, and he is co-author for 1 book. And he published 25 articles and 23 papers in reputed journals. His works are often quoted. He has recognized uh, um, he has organized 41 conferences, seminars, workshops, training programs. He was resource person trainer in 108 seminars, symposia, conferences, workshop training programs, etc. He has successfully guided 11 PhDs so far, and he visited the countries like US, China, Nepal, and Thailand. And at present, sir is working as Professor Emeritus VIPS Delhi. I welcome you once again for the 10-day national program on effective learning, teaching, and research during COVID period, sir. And today's topic, sir has chosen is effective teaching of constitutional law and new challenges. I once again, on behalf of the University College of Law and the participants, I welcome you, sir. And I hand over the session to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Basically, I am a teacher. I want to die as a teacher. That is my passion towards teaching. Otherwise, I would not have come at this age to Delhi to act as a professor emeritus. When they have invited, I should have said no, but came only because I will be able to teach for some more time.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Now I shall begin my topic, but at the outset, let me thank the charioteers of this program who have remembered me and invited me to talk on teaching constitutional law. And while teaching the constitutional law, I will also be mentioning about the challenges the constitutional teaching involves. Okay. Now, I will organize this lecture in such a manner so that for 1.5 hours, you will not be feeling boredom. How I organize is that, first of all, let us discuss something about teacher and teaching. Number one. And in this situation like pandemic, what are the things that are available for us for teaching? Then I will go for how do you teach constitutional law? So bear with me during this course of my lecture, and whenever your attention is required, I will also be again asking you, then you can unmute and also answer those questions. After the lecture is over, you can put the doubts, and it would be my happiness to clarify to the best of my ability. Okay. Now coming back to teaching constitutional law, my friends. A teacher affects in eternity and can never tell where the influence stops. Teachers wield enormous amount of influence on the students. Then we are talking about physical classroom setup. Even in synchronous method, we will be able to exert our influence. Friends, I tell you, Bertrand Russell once stated that teachers are more than any other class. They are the guardians of civilization. Okay, the destiny of any nation is shaped in the classrooms. Kothari Commission has stated. Now, new education policy has also come, which has stressed the importance of rather improving the resources of the teachers. Now, when I say the destiny of any nation is shaped in the classrooms, there are examples for that. Do you know that the seeds of Second World War were sown in the classrooms of Germany by the teachers who were admirers of Adolf Hitler? So good or bad, the teacher's influence is vital. He should be good because the teacher must have certain qualities. If he satisfies those qualities, he cannot be a bad teacher. And then, as we have stated, teacher must be a lighted candle in himself. This is not my quotation. He is a lighted candle in himself or herself. Otherwise, they cannot lit the other candles and they cannot see the flame of intelligence in others. So they must be, first of all, a lighted candle. A mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates. This quotation often we quote in the classrooms. India has the richest culture of respecting the teachers. We know whether it is Ram or Krishna, XYZ, whoever it may be. And then the process is process of learning between the teacher and the taught. There is no question of undue influence as you read in your law of contract. If there is an agreement between the teacher and the taught, the presumption is there is undue influence. That is not the situation. Here, the Indian culture taught us that both the teacher and the taught, they are partners in the process of learning. Om Sahana Vavtu Sahana Gunaktu Sarhagiryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvavshahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That was there. It is not to a particular God, the prayer. The prayer is to rather nourish them, extra energize them in order to reach the goal. That is the respect which we have given. That is why Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan has stated, a teacher must be a committed man. Committed for what? Committed to the future of man, the future of humanity, and the future of the country, and the future of the world. That is why in the new educational policy of 2019 also, teachers should truly shape the future of our children. Therefore, the future of our nation, clearly they have stated. With this, my friends, we will now see what are the various types of learning. I am not giving now teaching techniques. I am only telling you about three process of learning paradigms. The first one is, as we know and as we are habituated, and most of you must have been teachers already, that is regular classroom teaching and learning. It doesn't mean other things will not be there. Regular classroom teaching and learning with associated clinical teaching and practical work. The second one is synchronous learning. That is online education. It also happens real time. What we are doing now, a synchronous process of learning between me and you. So it is a synchronous learning. Okay. There may be asynchronous learning also. Asynchronous learning is rather, it is also through online channels only, but not with real time. Synchronous learning is with real time. Asynchronous learning is not with real time. The material is there. The teacher would be telling online, but these things are stored and supplied mainly to improve your skills. This is used, and mainly these three are there, and these three can produce several hybrid learning models. Asynchronous synchronous model, or regular synchronous model, or regular asynchronous model. Like that, several factors, several hybrid learning models can be created with reference to the teaching. Friends, insofar as the old timers like us are concerned, there is no doubt we are doing our best during this period of lockdown, partial or whole. But realize one particular thing, there cannot be a substitute for classroom teaching totally. I am carefully using totally. That means some portion may be there. Okay. Teachers' personal attention, human touch, have the impact of changing the lives of the people, and doesn't stop with the classroom. It continues outside throughout your life. I know personally how much the influence of my teachers is there. I was so arrogant. Those of my friends who know me, rather, when I was 15 years old or 20 years old, they would tell that how arrogant I was. But the whole change was brought when I registered for my PhD under my great guide, Professor C.K. and Raja in Manasa Gangotri, Mysore. That impact will be there. Even suppose if you are a bit middle-aged person, you will be having your children. If children are reading wrongfully, if you try to correct them, they won't listen to you. They will say, no, our teacher has said like that. We will read that only. So teachers' influence will not stop in the classroom. It goes further, continues throughout your life. There is one particular small novel. Some of you must have read it. Tuesdays with Morrie. An old professor, retired, he is on his deathbed. His student comes. He is also well settled, but nonetheless, to take some good words from him, he comes. He records whatever he says of his experience. It was a wonderful book. Those who did not read that one. Tuesdays with Morrie. When I teach research methodology, the very first slide I show is that my guide is my Morrie. I may not be Mitch Albom. Mitch Albom is that sincere student. I was not that sincere. He has practically shown me what is a hypothesis. How do you get scientific method meaningfully incorporated with regard to legal research and all these things. Actually, that topic, scientific method is much sought after topic. Okay, leave it. Those who believe in Itihasa, Itihasa means this has happened. That is means Ramas or Mahabharatas. You can see the influence of the teacher. Even Krishna had to have, even though he was a late admission with regard to Gurukula, he himself had the teacher. So, classroom teaching or personal touch teaching cannot be substituted by anything, because this will prepare the candidate for the life. Okay, the actioneering, the content, the ethical education or orientation, the teachers that are giving will be absent in these things, synchronous or other types of learning. There is also one more thing which you should remember. Okay. That is name of the, somebody is asking name of the book. Tuesdays with Mori. That is the name of the book. Okay. Read, that is a wonderful book. Mutual check for teachers also will be there. If you are in the classroom, students will be indirectly influencing your behavior, and you will be checking the behavior of the students. So there will be mutual check as well. Friends, I tell you, however, in synchronous method, digital classrooms are basically unequal. But we cannot help. We will have to be part of this one. If it continues for some more time, we will have to teach only through online to our students, as we are doing already. It is unequal because the advantages which I was telling with regard to classroom teaching are absent, number one. Number two, even if you are wonderful technical savvy, it all depends upon your laptop, your internet connection, your power connection. So many things are there for you if you are capable of having a wonderful computer or tab. But think of those people who are living in rural areas. Lack of accessibility. Education, when you say that, right to education, there should be affordability. Is it there in the question? There should be accessibility. Informative, economic accessibility, all these things come under them. And then acceptability shall be there. It is very easy. You can switch off your video and go to your work and come back only to give attendance. There are no checks, that is different issue. So the question of affordability is there. The question of accessibility is there. The result is that ultimately unequal. You may not be computer savvy, especially in the field of law. There are ill-equipped and ill-equipped law colleges wherein, for the sake of some observation to the rules, they may keep certain computers, but how do you expect these things when you go online? Okay, so these are the disadvantages. That does not mean I am against ICT. I am best in my age group. I am considered to be computer savvy, not only that, and somebody was phoning me. I am using computer wonderfully well. Not only that, my PowerPoint presentations are liked by my students. Okay, not for me, but in general I am saying, I am not against ICT. I am using ICT. You also use your ICT, and your entire research work is based upon utilizing online information, not like us who are in difficulties in collecting material. Now everything is available. Just touch one key, you will get the material. But I do not advocate for cutting and pasting. It is the order of the day. You will have to be very much well aware of these things. Sooner or later, my friends, I tell you. Sitting in Delhi, I am telling means I must have heard from some sources. There is no surprise if you get a circular stating that this much percentage of classes shall be online. automatically online teaching will be there. Okay. Now coming back, what is the purpose of the teaching? Teaching is a purposive act, mind it, inspiring interpersonal activity of learning between teacher and the taught. Remember this throughout your life. Teaching is a purposive, inspiring interpersonal activity of learning between the teacher and the taught. Because teacher is a facilitator of learning. And he is the diagnostician of learners' needs. All are not like the same. Okay. All are not like the same. Okay. Then he must be a motivating force. What do you mean by that? Motivation is different from attention. If an attender comes to your class, bringing a circular, you pay attention. Is it that tomorrow is going to be declared as a holiday? Or what is that circular? Some attention is paid, not that one. Motivation requires extra energization. It is a motivation is the process of arousing, maintaining and controlling the student's interest in the activity of teacher learning process. That is, extra energization shall be there. And all of you must be knowing, and all of you will be having intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation arises out of your need. For example, if you remember Abraham Maslow's pyramid of needs, why you have joined in PhD course or PhD program, immediately the first thing is that you will have to get your job permanent. Or a person who has joined as a teacher, why he is pursuing PhD immediately? It is for, number one, basic needs you require. Survival food, roti, kapda or maka. And then you will go for safety and security in the life. If you have this qualification, you are safe and you will be going throughout till your retirement happily. But some people will have love and acceptance. I want to read. I want to settle as a criminal law lawyer. Not criminal lawyer. Criminal law lawyer. Okay, criminal lawyer gives a different meaning as you know it. And then for some people it is self-esteem. My classmate was there at that time. I was only 23 years old, but that person was 45 years old. Self-satisfaction, intellectual achievement, and then ultimately self-actualization or aesthetic appreciation you will have. So, the motivation already will be there. What you will have to do is keep that intrinsic motivation among the students and extra energize them. That means extrinsic motivation, a word of appreciation, or giving whatever that interests them. It will give them a sort of energy. Because I tell you, my friends, I was there on 4th August 2017 when judgment was delivered in the Supreme Court. You know, you can guess what is that case. Case Puttaswamy versus Union of India. There was a discussion in the class, some interested students. Immediately on seeing their interest, we have discussed that matter and I told the students, contribute an article. It will come only in your name. The students of National Law School, within no time, they have conducted a weekend workshop for that and contributed articles, and it was published in the form of a book. What more extra energization and extrinsic motivation we can give? Let the students rise to the occasion, think critically, question, and then almost they will be better students than us. Friends, okay, leaving those things aside, I am not going to give you the tips of extrinsic motivation now. That is not our purpose. Already I am just wasting my time. Friends, whether it is constitutional law class or whether it is any other subject class, there will be 3 types of students, broadly speaking, spill over there in these 3 categories. Number 1, mastery-oriented students. These mastery-oriented students, even if you do not teach a particular topic, they won't leave you. They will be very sincerely writing the notes. Whatever you say with rapt attention, they will be listening. If they got doubts, they will come to your chambers and even to your house to get their doubts clarified. These are all mastery-oriented students. They require sufficient extrinsic motivation to cash on that mastery orientation. Some students, you can see, they will have breathtaking potential as well. We may be a bit trouble at times because the questions which they put, we may not be ready to give answer. Nothing. There is no problem. If you do not know a particular thing, you will verify and tell what is the problem in it. Okay. The second type of students, my friends, they are failure-avoiding students. Failure-avoiding students. These students, they say, for some purpose, because father has said, or because they want something, they want to work for somewhere, all these things, what they would do is, they will take up some guide. They don't attend regularly classes, but they wanted to pass the examination. They will be very sincere just before the examination. Very seriously they read. They somehow or other, they will vomit in the class, the examination, and pass the examination. Failure-avoiding students. Your role would be to motivate them to reach mastery-oriented students. Everybody will have a weakness. If you praise them, or if you say that you are capable of doing this, encourage them, whatever it may be, they will be motivated and they will become mastery-oriented students. The third category of students are very dangerous, not only for themselves, they will be dangerous to the other categories also. These are failure-accepting students. Now it is there or not, I do not know. In those days, jurisprudence is there. The teacher who has taken up that subject was not able to make it interesting for us. So some of our classmates, they used to say, I will write this examination in September. Nothing is going to my mind. So they have accepted failure. As a teacher, will you accept that type of student? What you will have to do is that failure-accepting student must become failure-avoiding student, and failure-avoiding student must become mastery-oriented student, and mastery-oriented student must become breathtaking potential person to challenge everything in the society. So, how do you estimate that? When student enters into your classroom, you know that he knows this much, his entry behavior with regard to subject, how much he knows. That is known as entry behavior. You teach. After some time, you again gauge how much subject he knows. That means entry behavior, terminal behavior. Okay? The terminal behavior minus entry behavior is benefit accrued. If benefit accrued is 0, we are 0 as teachers. Benefit accrued shall be something. That is why a good teaching, like good writing, is rooted in careful selection, deciding what not to teach and what to teach, what is important and what is not important. It is not merely covering the syllabus, it is uncovering the syllabus, I used to say. And then the credo of the teacher, especially constitutional law teacher, update, upgrade, and enrich the knowledge. Today, if you are taking class, the students may ask, sir, what is dissent? What is contempt? And if you say, I do not know what is happening. Okay, so influence of the teacher goes through for a constitutional law teacher, as I have told you, because it is always in flux. You will have to upgrade and update and enrich your knowledge. Somebody is rather cautioning me to take up constitutional law. I know now I have come to constitutional law. Okay. Friends, one thing which we should note is that not all will get an opportunity to teach constitutional law. Not all will get an opportunity to teach constitutional law. Because there will be several teachers having different specializations, so only one or two may get the opportunity. Opportunity to teach constitutional law, my friends, is an exciting and challenging experience. It would be an intellectual feast, a task to make layperson also into a legal expert, whatever may be the field. Indian Constitution stood the test of the times. More than 70 years of its existence, faced many challenges, onslaughts, and attempts to subvert it. It sustained injuries. It was subject to more than 103 amendments. It is 103 or 104 amendments at the rate of 1.5 amendments per year. It has seen many phases of Indian post-constitutional developments and predicaments. Facilitated mixed economy in the beginning, and in the middle, socialist economy. Now it is facilitating global economy. From industrial technology, it has come to different stages of electronic revolution, evolved new rights. Privacy was not there previously. Now it is there. Like transformative constitutional exam. Now we have. So all these things it has seen. That means constitutional law is a live wire. Don't forget that. So teaching constitutional law is not that easy. Constitution is a different subject from other subjects, both in the terms of covering statutes or cases. The reason is that it is fundamental law of the country, laying down the rules and the regulations according to which the country is governed. It also refers to, by virtue of Article 141, all the decisions of the Supreme Court are binding on all other courts we have noted. There are two irreducible minimum subjects, my friends. One is constitutional law and the other is jurisprudence. I did not read jurisprudence that much till I reached as a teacher. I could see the deficiency in me. Then I started reading it. But as a student themselves, let them know the jurisprudence and constitutional law very well. Teachers may opt to teach any subject, but they must have that gumption, acumen in constitutional law as well. It makes them a different persons altogether. The subjects taught are at various stages, at LLB, at LLM. You may have differential treatment, different curriculum. So that doesn't give you any problem. I remember the quotation given by Granville Austin. Another important book when you want to become a good teacher of constitutional law or good reader of constitutional law is that you know the background of the Constitution. Framing of the Constitution, be sure of you must be reading. But there is a book, Granville Austin, Indian Constitution, Cornerstone of a Nation. Indian Constitution, Cornerstone of a Nation. The Indian Constitution, first and foremost, a social document. The majority of its provisions are either directly or indirectly aimed to furthering the goals of social revolution or attempts to foster this revolution by establishing the conditions necessary for achievement. The core commitment, of course, under Part 3, Part 4. They expected that one day the tree of true liberty would bloom in India. With this quotation of Granville Austin, giving the importance of the Constitution, now let us discuss wonderfully what are the various steps which we shall observe in teaching the constitutional law. There are steps which we can identify, or we can say they are identifiable steps. Each teacher will have his or her own way of teaching. But these are the minimum steps one has to think when it is the teaching of constitutional law. The first thing which you shall decide is whether it is learner-centric or curricular-centric or teacher-centric approach. So decide, first step is decide whether it is learner-centric or curricular-centric or teacher-centric way of approach in teaching. Then, based upon the nature of the class or audience, evolve the strategy. Number 3, set objectives of the teaching. Number 4, evolve or evaluate the course content, not students' performance, I am telling here. Evolve or evaluate course content. Assess the challenges in dealing with the Constitution. What are the challenges you face in dealing with the Constitution? That is the 5th step. The 6th step is evolve appropriate methods of teaching constitutional law. Which method is suitable? Is it Socratic method? Is it case method? Which type? There are 150 methods of teaching. Which method is appropriately suitable? You will have to select. And then use of ICT appropriately, meaningfully, and usefully. Then review your steps. Review whatever you wanted to teach. Then decide on evaluation methods. Evaluation, all these things step by step, we will have to think and discuss. Okay. Now, the first step is, what is the first step? Decide whether it is a learner-centric or curriculum-centric approach. Teacher-centric is not that much freedom we have. Learner-centric means the classrooms focus primarily on individual students' learning needs. The teacher's role is to facilitate the growth by utilizing the interests and unique needs of the students as like a guide. It is not free for all classroom. Learner-centric means leave the classroom, let them discuss, not like that. It is not free for all. These classrooms are goal-based. Students learning, the concentration is only on student learning is judged by whether they have achieved the predetermined goal or not, or developmentally oriented objectives which you have set for the teaching. And then the next one is, there is one question whether it is applicable to all teachings or not. Certain things may be useful, but certain things are applicable only to constitutional law. Specifically, one by one step when we go, they are applicable only to constitutional law, not to all. So the first things which I have said, they are applicable to both. Okay, curriculum-centered classrooms focus essentially in covering the syllabus. Curriculum is different from syllabus, my friends. Till now, there is no clarity. When we set the syllabus, syllabus is different from curriculum. Specification of subjects is different. And then give goals to that. Predetermined goals we are mentioning. You can give goal to the whole subject. You can give goal to even each unit or subunit. Then only it will become curriculum. Otherwise, it is not. Curriculum-centered classroom focuses essentially on teaching the curriculum, or the teacher determines what ought to be given, what ought not to be given within the time frame. We are compelled to be working within the time frame, and it must be covered in that time frame. That is one thing. There is another thing, teacher-centric. When teacher becomes autocrat, he will not allow any discussion. He will tell and he will go. That is, so when you take up a triangle, ultimately, whether it is learner-centric or teacher-centric or curriculum-centric, the process is teaching and learning process. Okay, you put a triangle. Learner will interact with the teacher. Teacher will keep in his mind curriculum. Learner also will keep his mind in curriculum. Curriculum is meant for learner and teacher. So, it is a triangular paradigm. The second thing is that strategy. Strategy. What is your strategy? Strategy is a bit different from method. Method, when we are to achieve some objectives, meaningful method we adopt, and that method is adopted in with a particular strategy. Okay. So, strategy is a type of method utilized to realize the goal. That was the observation by Stone and Maris. Whether to cover and uncover the syllabus, not both, it is to promote knowledge. Knowledge is not merely based upon information, it is based upon the truth. So, knowledge with wisdom becomes power. It is not merely knowledge. Information leads to knowledge. Knowledge with power, rather wisdom is power. That should be the paradigm. Jnanam, samyak, vikshanam and all these things. It is generalized plan of lesson. Strategy is a generalized plan for the lesson, your classroom behavior. A strategy does not mean that you should follow only single track. For some cases, some classes, we may have to give case method. For some classes, we may have to adopt purely the modern Socratic method. There is a modern Socratic method also, I will tell you after some time. And for some cases, you will have to give case comment to be written. You may give class flipping, that is called. Okay. So what is the requirement is that in a particular lesson, what is the strategy you are following? It is not track for all time. Understand? And then teaching tactics is bit different from the strategy of the teacher. Tactics. If you see teaching tactics, you may remember your teachers. I remember my teachers. Professor Gauss was there in Anantapur. He starts with the latest case. Suppose he will start with case Puttaswamy, go back to A.K. Gopalan's case via Maneka Gandhi. So, from latest to the beginning. There also, he will be telling about Article 21. He will be telling about all the 3 ingredients. No person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. So, what is life? What is personal liberty? What is procedure established by law? But when we teach in the classroom, we start with A.K. Gopalan's case and go up to this Aadhaar case. That is our tendency, but he will teach differently. But he was a wonderful teacher, ever seen, with reference to constitutional law. There was another teacher of mine. It is like taking directly the grapes inside. Everything he will tell, like a story. And then C. Raja demonstrates. When legal history, they said that it is very dry subject. He has taken that class and students came out and said, it is like seeing a war movie. So, these tactics will be different and individualistic. It varies from teacher to teacher, and over a period of time, every teacher will develop their own way of taking the lesson. Step 3, set objectives. Minimum objectives of study of constitutional law have to be evolved. Number 1, from the beginning, you cannot put hard stuff into the mouth of just born child. You start with milk. Like that, when you start the constitution, we all will tell the definition of the constitution, definition of constitutional law. Very easily, we will say. But how many of us, we are teaching the development of constitutionalism? What is constitutionalism? What Acton said? Was it there previously or not? What are the features of constitutionalism? What is positive constitutionalism? What is transformative constitutionalism? That is quoted. Of course, it may not be our own, but it is quoted and relied upon in Joseph Schein and Navati Singh's cases. A different approach will evolve if you can teach them in the beginning along with the definition of constitution, classifications of the constitution. What is constitutional law? There is a slight difference between these two, constitution and constitutional law, and then give constitutional background. Otherwise, they may not be able to understand under what compulsion they have made so many restrictions on the rights. Just like Corona now we are having, in those days, communal hatred and other things were there. People were not stirring out of their houses, even Delhi, northeastern frontiers, and other places in India. Everything there was a trouble. So in those circumstances, all members of the Constituent Assembly agreed upon the restrictions, even though the content of restrictions, they were not agreeable. That is how we had Article 22 constitutionally guaranteed, which is a rare phenomenon in the Constitution. So, framing of the Constitution, not elaborately, but in modicum, wherever that is necessary, you will have to give. And then, role of the government. Suppose tomorrow if you have class, I had a class, immediately the student has asked, what is that Supreme Court is doing during pandemic? Supreme Court, how many suo motu cases it has delivered, I told them. So, role of the government in pandemic, I tell you, constitutional law is always in flux. You will have a number of questions put by the students and you may have to answer. As a teacher, you cannot say that I do not know this. Then, the first thing which you should do is that, first objective, student must be thorough with black letter law. Once I say black letter law, the constitution bare text, what the students have, and decisions given by the court. Why the decisions given by the apex court under Article 141? They are binding on all other courts in India. So it is almost part of constitutional law, like conventions. Yes, a student has asked an interesting question. Sir, everybody is talking about Shreya Singhal's case. Everybody is talking about so-and-so case. Prior to Puttaswamy also, there were nearly 10 decisions wherein privacy is stated. What is the necessity in case Puttaswamy's case to say that all pre-existing decisions are valid? Why there are only 2 judges in Shreya Singhal's case and you are telling it is a high constitutional principle is evolved? Any interpretation of law, any decision on law leading to the interpretation of the Constitution, according to 145 clause 3, there must be 5 judges. It is called constitutional law bench. But many important decisions are made by 2 judges, 3 judges, like that. So if there is a constitutional interpretation, you require 5 judges. What is the reason? You may say that constitutional principle is already there. It is made applicable. But we cannot say such things for Shreya Singhal like cases. And how seemingly minor changes you will have to tell them. If there is a minor change, the decision will be different. The best example would be State of West Bengal versus Anwar Ali Sarkar. And then again, Khati Raning Rawat case. Same set of facts, different opinion. State of West Bengal versus what is that? Anwar Ali Sarkar. Khati Raning Rawat case. Prior to that, Anwar Ali Sarkar's case, I think. So both are same set of facts. Preamble is different, so decision was different. Even though those 2 cases were taken together, they decided differently for these cases. And then you will have to explain them in the objectives. Whenever there is an occasion, the niceties of judicial craftsmanship and judicial strategies. People will be hearing, the student will be hearing what is judicial activism, what is judicial restraint, what is the dynamism, and what is judicial overreach, and what is judicial usurpation. For each one of them, we will be able to discuss. But again, I am telling you, my friends, as a teacher, you shall have value neutrality insofar as the class is concerned, and afterwards you can have your opinion. Nobody can stop. Okay. And then you must also think about procedural aspects. Constitutional law goes through several subjects. We may have to sometimes deal with political science, human rights, gender justice, feminism like, and then history of the times. Definitely they will be referring to the history as well, judges. So several subjects, they interject, they interfere, or they will have an implication on constitutional law. Not only that, even custom or usage. Students may ask you, the definition of law under Article 13 is inclusive definition, of course, not an exhaustive definition, but says all the rules, regulations, bylaws, notifications and orders, custom or usage having force of law. So how can you continue the personal laws? That is one of the questions. Several decisions of the Supreme Court are there. It also talks about international perspective. Do we follow monoistic theory? When you agree internationally, when our government signs a particular treaty, will it automatically become law of the land? The answer is no. And the answer should be that there is Article 253 wherein the Parliament has to pass a law. It is dangerous to teach, of course, the subject. Which one you wanted to repeat? Implications, economics, political science, these things. As I have told you, if you discuss a particular case, Samshaya Singh case, if you remember, therein our people have stated the majority judgment, India follows parliamentary system. In fact, majority has used Westminster model. That is not the correct thing. Critically, you can examine. Justice V.R. Krishna here has given concurrent judgment to it. A wonderful judgment. He has referred to P.B. Mukherjee, who has taken a different point of view. Even now, my friends, my learned colleague, Professor Vijay Kumar, was telling that India follows classical presidential system. It is not cabinet system, he declares. In the classroom, that challenge will be going on. So is it political science or constitutional law is the question. Similarly, if you talk about GST and validity, are you talking about taxation, economics like that? Are you talking about purely the constitution? Similarly, gender perspective you take, are you not talking about feminism? When you take the testing of personal laws, custom or usage, you are talking about that. So, international relations also, that is another point which I was telling. By virtue of Article 253, the Parliament can enact, irrespective of the fact that it is in state list, a law with reference to any treaty. Okay. And then, my friends, one more thing which you will have to think. On custom or usage, please repeat, sir, he said. If I start taking that class, yesterday I was telling, it took me 2 hours. Custom or usage, they need not use the expression usage. Okay. Once you say custom, automatically usage, which was observed for a long time, is taken care of. Certain things are still based upon custom. Yesterday I was talking about discrimination of women, constitutional discrimination, how Section 9, which was not there previously, now incorporated, they were not ready to rather remove it. In all the personal laws, restitution of conjugal rights is there, which works against women, I have shown very clearly. With regard to bigamy marriages, how do you prove the marriage? You have to prove the marriage, na? Whether it is Islamic marriage or Hindu marriage. You take Hindu marriage, what will happen? Hindu marriage has to be celebrated in accordance with the customary rites and ceremonies of either party thereto under Section 7 of the Hindu Marriage Act. If South India or Andhra Pradesh, we say, Mangalyam Tanturamena Mama Jivana Hetuna, like that. That is, unless you prove that, the marriage is not proved. If he marries 2 persons, the first marriage is not proved, he is not liable for bigamy. Okay, there are very many things like that. So, friends, when you take up, that is another challenge. Let me complete the challenges. You can ask the doubts afterwards. Okay, then plurality of what you call opinions. various opinions. We have concurrent opinion, dissenting opinion, dissenting not only outside, dissent. Even among the judges also dissenting opinion is there. And also there will be binding nature of precedents. Per incuriam, we say, in Deep Chand versus State of Uttar Pradesh, the Supreme Court has not referred to its earlier decision, Sundar Ramayer's case, State of Andhra Pradesh, wherein legislative competency was discussed by applying doctrine of eclipse. I have criticized this one. So, per incuriam, a thing which is not rather quoted, even though that is substantial for the decision of the court, then you can say it suffers from per incuriam. There are famous dissents. They are more important than majority opinions because they have now become majority opinions that were expressed in Kharak Singh case, ADM Jabalpur case, and then certain judgments of V.R. Krishna Iyer, as I have told you, concurrent opinion. So all these things, this is the objective. Touching upon the constitutional developments is another angle in the constitution. Suppose if you take constitutional case, rather class now, and if you do not refer to Shreya Singhal, Jarnail Singh, Joseph Shine case, Navtesh Singh's case, Shaira Banu's case, Sabarimala case, Justice Puttaswamy's case, and prisoners' right to vote case, all these things, what will happen? You are not completing the subject. So, latest development, it is always in flux and challenging and fascinating experience to teach constitutional law, I have told you. Okay, case comments, that is more important in constitutional law classes than previous classes. Friends, I tell you, constitution can be taught by way of doctrinaire approach. Simply tell the constitutional provision and then tell what is the case or cases on that, and then you leave them black letter as we have noted. And then it can also be taught, as I have told you, by giving them practical inputs by way of discussion. But teacher never shall show his bias while teaching. That is a disservice to the students. Give them all inputs. Let them make a decision. They have the right to make their own decision. It is essential to bring scholarly approach and critical approach into the course that is taught. It may be difficult sometimes. Define justice. Can you define? Even Amartya Sen, in his idea of justice, could not define it. He said that it is contextual mostly. If you are asked to define equality, will you be able to define? You will be able to define what is inequality, and you will not be able to define what is equality. Inequality means any power relationship wherein one person is in position to dominate the will of the other. There arises inequality. Certain things are tolerated, but remaining things are not tolerated. Most importantly, another point which you should note is that analogous provisions, wherever necessary, keeping in view that time frame of one academic year or semester, because our judges habitually quote American judgments or British judgments, still that is there. Okay. I will explain the custom also afterwards. Please bear with me because already time is up. When it comes to discussion, we will discuss. Okay. I will tell you because yesterday itself I was talking. Analogous approach. Referring to other constitutional decisions. Even in Shreya Singhal's case, Justice Nariman said American cases are not relevant. Even in Babulal, Parathe versus State of Bombay or Maharashtra, he said that That doctrine is exploded doctrine. What is that doctrine? Clear and present danger test is an exploded doctrine. Okay. Some noise is there. Please. So, analogous provisions wherever necessary is important to refer. Now we will come to evolve or evaluate the course content wherein we do not have much autonomy. Pedagogy is the discipline that deals with the theory and practice of education. How many of the teachers have that autonomy to develop your own pedagogy, to develop your own theory and curriculum or syllabus? What we give, maybe course outline also. Remember that constitutional developments are always in flux. Once again, I am telling you, constant update of curriculum is required. But in some of the universities, long back they have mentioned, only old cases they have mentioned, and still it is not updated or upgraded. We do not have much autonomy. That does not mean every teacher will have his private space or autonomy. Okay? Now, come to assess the challenges. This is most important one. When you are, if we want to assess the challenges, mostly politico-constitutional questions will be put to you. There cannot be constitutional law totally without politics. Even the Supreme Court was branded saying that it was in politics. The judgment between 1965 and 78, they look like they were in politics. Some people started telling, there are books, Supreme Court in politics. Or Senior Nariman recently had written, God save the Honorable Court. So, even one of the Supreme Court judges lamented that there is growing intolerance towards judiciary. What are the reasons? Growing intolerance towards judiciary. Even sociological aspects influence the constitution. Problems of migrant labor. The first question that was asked when I have started the class, not even definition of constitution or constitutional law I have given. The student has asked, sir, what about migrant labor problem? Suo motu case, whether Supreme Court could take or not, even though there was a bit criticism for responding lately, but Supreme Court has taken number of suo motu cases. Not only the Supreme Court, various high courts have taken suo motu cases. That will be a fertile source of research for any scholar. How many suo motu cases were taken up and how they have decided and dealt with pandemic during this season. And then, my friends, do you have specific method of teaching? That is step 6. Did I tell steps 5? I think so. Assess the challenges. Okay. Do you think that is there any specific method of teaching? As I have told you, even the choice of the method of teaching is independent. But one thing one should remember, even the best curriculum on the Constitution and most perfect syllabus remains dead letter unless quickened into life by the right method of teaching, but right kind of teacher. Method is the means of reaching the predetermined goal. We have noted already. There are, as I have told you, 150 methods. The biggest challenge is which method we should take. Is it Socratic method? Is it lecture method? Is it case study method? Is it problem solving method? Observation method? Conversational method? Assignment method? Clinical method? And so on, we can declare it like that. Most of us, we believe in lecture method, but most effectively in other advanced schools, they always say that, can we adopt Socratic method? And we are adopting Socratic method without knowing the meaning of it. Some teachers may say, what is that Socratic method? Socratic method of 4th century BC initially, not with regard to constitutional law, with regard to philosophy, Socrates started it. So that is why it is Socratic method. It is cooperative, argumentative dialogue between individuals. What will happen? They will ask questions, start giving answers, critical thinking, and then they refute the answers, and again they will say, ultimately they reach the truth. In Socrates' time, they did not reach the truth ultimately. He was the victim of it ultimately. Okay, what happens is, take for example, they have given lying is sinful. I will take another example which is understandable by us. Thou shalt speak truth always. Okay. Dharma is truth, truth is dharma. But there is a difference. I will show you. A person is chased by a group of thieves. He was running. He went to a rishi who was meditating, and he said, please don't tell that I'm hiding behind the bushes. When they come, please don't tell. Then they came. Should he tell the truth or not? If he tells the truth, an innocent person will be killed and his riches will be taken away. And then, take another example. Thieves were chased by the security people or army people or police people. He comes to the same rishi and says, I am going to hide behind the bush. Then don't tell the truth. Now, rishi, whether he has to tell the truth or not. So like that, the answer obvious we know. The Socratic method goes on statements which are imaginary, start questioning, and ultimately they reach. This method is known as, it is a method of teaching style, or Elenchus method they have called it, or debate. They propose a hypothesis. Hypothesis we know. A tentative generalization, the veracity of which may be proved or disproved based upon the material you have, or based upon the data you have collected. It is only a hypothesis, a hunch, which may be proved or which may be disproved. You are not bothered about it, but hypothetical statement you make. Then discussion, start eliminating one by one your hypothetical things. Ultimately, you will reach the reality. That is, by way of questioning, you will arrive at the truth. By probing, there may be a problem. That problems arose with regard to Socrates. That is why a modern variant of Socratic method is taken up by law schools, even though not in India, elsewhere. That is, teacher will have knowledge agenda with him. Teacher knows. He starts probing questions. By that questions, dialect lies in questioning. Irony is that apparently teacher is ignorant, but actually is not ignorant. Elenchus arises. Elenchus means cross-examination and logical refutation. there are certain disadvantages in it. The disadvantage is that you will select few questions, few students. Automatically, other students will be angered. Or this student thinks that he is embarrassed. It is humiliating, irritating questions also may come. So that is why, meaningfully, they have adopted, especially in America, Socrates method was integrated with case study method. You know, as research scholars, you know, as teachers, what is this one? Case study method. Going deep into a particular matter, in-depth study of particular phenomenon, characteristics and everything, and analyze it and get the answer. Case study method. You know that. This case study method, last students are not teaching for give a big case. They will give a particular phenomenon. They will ask, this is migrant labor. Read it. These are the facts. Read it and come to the class. Then we will start questioning. Cold pick will be there. And there will be discussion and arrive at a particular conclusion and analysis. A wonderful thing that is developed by over a period of time. Issues of poverty, issues of unemployment, migrant labor, and very, very social legal problems can be studied through this method in the classroom. By that time, by the time they finish their problem, automatically they will become experts in that. But we do not adopt. Ours is only safe lecture method, wherein how many students are listening, we do not know. The case study method also may be effective one. It is meant only to describe, theorize, finish. Exploratory one, we do not know what that phenomenon is. We try to know, have the knowledge, or then it may be exploratory. Friends, I tell you, if it is individual study, the time taken is more. If it is group discussion, less time. Class discussion, further less. So, these two, if they are coupled meaningfully, and our young teachers, like you, if you are trained, it will be a wonderful classroom setup for law schools. It is a teacher-oriented, student-oriented, learner-oriented, curriculum-oriented. All these things are taken care of. And then there is this program that is going on. I do not know whether our law people are adopting the same or not, because I have addressed a number of FDP programs, to tell you very frankly. But I was telling one particular point. For new teachers, it may be voluntary also. Teacher training facility technique of micro teaching. B.Ed students will tell you a lot about it. Little time they take. They make a rehearsal and present their viewpoint. Observed by team. They will be gauged what to do, what not to do. There is one more thing, is that flipped classroom. Flipped classroom is a type of blended learning wherein the students are introduced to the content at home and then practice working through the institution. Working at home, practice through the institution. If you remember, there is what is known as Bloom's taxonomy. So that means in that, before the class, they understand and remember. And then in the class, they apply and analyze. After the class is over, they evaluate and creating the required theory. The seventh step, I will not go to eighth step, challenges in the classroom. The first challenge we face is that those who have studied constitutional law may listen. Whether constitutional law suffers from defective drafting. short time, 2 years, 11 months and 18 days they have taken. If there is no defective drafting, why should they amend the constitution first time when the Constituent Assembly has amended it? Is it not? So Article 19 specifically, the word reasonable is introduced in Article 19 Clause 2, and also prohibited markers they have mentioned, and 103 amendments we have passed. It is generally natural to have the amendments in the beginning of the Constitution, but even after 70 years, we are still having the amendments over amendments. Is it necessary? The question student will ask. Okay, we may justify it. Each one will have his own conviction as it is justified. At that time, we did not envisage. Subsequently, the Supreme Court has struck down the cases, especially in Ramesh Thapar and Brisbhushan cases, or Champakam Dorai Rajan's case. For every amendment, there will be a case also. Case, nullifying amendment. Catena of cases, nullifying amendments. Most of the things, they happen like that. Not only that, you see, one example I will give, will not take much time because already time is up. They will be rather cautioning me. Take the case of simple read two things. What is Article 15, Clause 1? State shall not discriminate against any citizen on the grounds of only religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. Agreed? Then, what is Article 15, Clause 3? Nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any special provisions for women and children. Age is not a prohibited marker. Why should you mention children here? Next, go to Trade, Commerce and Intercourse, Article 301 to 307. You will find defective drafting. Situation is created. What is law enforced and existing law? Friends, I am telling you, I am the person, I believe that our constitution is a wonderful constitution, stood the test of the times. But we will have to get the answers for these questions that are asked in the classroom. There will be sensitive questions. We are above everything. As a teacher, as I have told you, neutral values. You may be asked about questions about Sabrimala case. You may be asked questions about Ayodhya. You may be asked questions about Triple Talaq. You may be asked questions about several things which are controversial, including the conviction for dissent. Okay. Then you may have to give them necessary inputs. It is very rather on razor edge. We are the constitutional law teachers. So they will have to be very careful. The third thing which they should remember is that relevancy of the problem. What is that? Number two things are there. If you start rather talking whatever you want under the sky, people will be amused for a day or two. Afterwards, you will become most unsuccessful teacher. So relevancy should be there for your teaching. Another thing is that students sometimes feel that whatever we are taught here, this is not relevant to in the courts. What is that you are telling? For that purpose only, what they say is that moot courts, mock trial, these are all the things. You tell about golden triangle of the Indian Constitution, 14, 19 and 21. How do they help? You should show. They are golden triangle of the Indian Constitution, equality, freedom and life and personal liberty. But with regard to restrictions, they may have operational differences. If emergency is proclaimed, Article 19 is suspended automatically. With regard to other articles, there should be a specific order. or the president. And Article 21 cannot be done, cannot be taken away. So there are operational differences. And then illustrating the themes of the course. As I have told you, several methods illustrate, okay, and then different constitutional issues require different approaches. Friends, I tell you one more thing. Students always tend to take class notes. My students would say, sir, we are taking running notes. I always discourage. That is my personal view. Because when I am teaching in the classroom or synchronous method, there is no need to take the notes. Whatever slides that are there, we will be sharing. But if you start taking down the notes, what will happen is you may miss the points, number one. Taking notes is contagious, like sleep. If your benchmate is sleeping, automatically you will get sleep. If your benchmate, whether there is a point or not, takes down notes, automatically you start taking down notes. That is not necessary. Okay? That is, of course, it is left to you. Friends, 8th step, ICT. I am not going to waste my time on this, not waste. But of course, you know better than me how you can use the ICT methods in education. 87% of information enters into your mind through eyes. That is why even in lecture method, we have what you call eye-to-eye contact. Sometimes we give some sort of break, like to put questions, not to bring them back. Even if you are a great orator, for every 10 to 15 minutes, your mind goes elsewhere to other activities. It will not be there to hear. So 9% only through hearing and 4% via other senses. Okay, if it all by senses we are getting. As Auguste Comte said, that empirical study is the only scientific investigation, with which I did not agree. So, only through senses. Okay, that is another angle which you should take. Think about ICT. I have given you the advantages as well as disadvantages. Friends, I tell you, instructional design or lesson plan is very important. Logically, orderly, effective presentation will be possible only when you can develop a blueprint of your teaching. When you want to construct you go for a blueprint. Similarly, when you want to have a wonderful lecture, have a blueprint of it. You may change here and there. Your strategy may change, but it is required. And also when there is a lesson plan, you will upgrade and update and enrich your knowledge. You can anticipate the learner's needs once you have planned. Like everything you can mention in the lesson plan. I am not going to give you the 9 steps that are there for a lesson plan because of the time factor. Already time is up. And then now I think that I shall close at this point of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the question is, sometimes before teaching a topic itself, we predict a certain questions from students on the day of teaching, where we don't have answer either in textbook or some other source. So this happens because what we teach are old age acts contradicting today's situation. So how to manage that situation in the class?
Definitely, I have given the example also. At 11:20, I had the class. Understand? 11:20. Did I know privacy judgment at that time? 11 o'clock, judgment was delivered. 11:20, in the classroom discussion started. So how do you start? The question is, number one, whatever little you know about privacy. Privacy was there even previously, as I have told you. Start explaining that. Invite discussion. They themselves will tell, sir, at 11:20 this judgment has come. We anticipated the judgment. Okay. So like that, you can give a concrete example. I will tell you how to tell it. Okay. No problem. It should be the class of constitutional law. Unless they put questions like that. I have told you, constitutional law class, first class, my assistant was rather taking attendance and was giving the outlines of the class. Student asked, what about response of the Supreme Court? So what you should have done for all these days, you are not keeping quiet, but seeing the relevant news items and know whether Supreme Court has responded properly or not. With regard to coronavirus topic was there on fundamental rights. That was the topic. Coronavirus and fundamental rights. Is it a topic to be discussed without having anything? I was asked. So then I took class for that. Coronavirus and fundamental rights. How many rights are violated? First question. Because of lockdown, how many rights are violated? And then all the rights we mentioned, freedom of movement, freedom to assemble peacefully and without arms, Article 21, like that, number of articles are violated. Number two, do they have legislative competence to violate? Section 144 CRPC, 188 IPC, all these things we know. Do they have legislative competence? National Disaster Management Act. Was it passed for a pandemic? It is for floods, calamities like that. But they have used it, that language. Court also accepted it in normal times. If it is challenged, you would say, no, how can it come? It is for different purpose. Then, what is the competency of the states? Under Endemic Act 1857, under Section 2, only the state government is given competence to deal with the endemic, not the central government. So, it is carefully worded, if you can see. Advisory from the Home Ministry, because they are involved. So, Union government is involving itself under National Disaster Management Act, Section 144 or 188 IPC, all these things, and the states are under Endemic Act of 1867 or 87, something like that. So, that is why I said, acting as a teacher of constitutional law is like walking on a razor's edge. Every day you will have a problem. In the morning, in some other lecture, they were asking me, what is your opinion about Prashant Bhushan case? I said, who will care for my opinion? The judgment is, he is convicted. How much punishment they are going to give, they will tell. But I have given them, after telling that jocularly, I have given them what is contempt of court, starting from Namboodiripad case. Do you remember? Namboodiripad, communist leader, wonderful leader he was. He was also booked for contempt of court. But in the last, they have given only very little punishment. So like that, so many cases are there. Prashant Bhushan's case is not the first one, nor the last one. Okay. So scope of contempt of court with value neutrality. Now let them decide. Now they start reading, when they open newspaper, first of all they see constitutional law problems, what Supreme Court has stated. Not any other headline. First class, after the first class is over, the students immediately, they take paper cuttings or also they download. There are Wonderful. These things are there. Now, fifth estate. Meaning of fifth estate is different, not what we are using. Okay. They will take. So, this preparedness should be there. Anticipatory preparedness is a must for constitutional law teacher.
The next question is BCCI is a private body under Article 12. So why did Supreme Court involve in BCCI to register a case and appointed a committee? Please explain.
It went on by appeal. It went on by appeal. GE case, na? GE Telefilms case, something like that. You refer that. It went on by appeal. Then, second question. An allied question for that. A company or a corporation, okay, is not a state. It is a person. Can it violate fundamental rights? Can Supreme Court directly take that case into account? As you said, an extension of that. Can it take it or not? Look at MC Mehta versus Union of India Sriram Fertilizers case, Orium gas leak case. The problem with the court judgment was that, as far as I am concerned, that it has given the remedy. There is no exception, absolute liability. As we have recognized some exceptions for Leyland versus Fletcher in England under law of torts, those exceptions are not there now. They are absolutely liable. Supreme Court has given the remedy. But when it came to recognizing even corporations or companies which are permitted under the law, they should be considered as a state. The court said, we do not have time to listen. They did not say whether a company or a corporation is a state or not. Similarly, you take all the companies or corporations, they indirectly challenge for under 14, but they raise the questions relating to 19 because some preferential shareholders or ordinary shareholders will be citizens of India. They can exercise their rights under Article 19.
Sir, the next question. When we take any river water dispute, the states who are sharing the river water are not following the tribunal order. So how can they be stopped violating the tribunal's order under Indian constitutional law?
262. 262. 262 under was 262 directly they cannot be resolved by the Supreme Court. Okay. Supreme Court's jurisdiction is also vested constitutionally. Only tribunals have to decide. Okay. But what happens is that after tribunal decides on technical grounds, they go to High Court or Supreme Court. Supreme Court directly, of course. 262. Refer to 262. Actually, the court's jurisdiction is whose state? But then they will go on technical grounds once the tribunal has given. That is why no water dispute is resolved satisfactorily till now. Our dispute also is there now. Now it is going to be there. Again, it comes to the court. Krishna water dispute. Okay, that is also there. Indian friends, I tell you, India requires more experts on constitutional law. Sometimes when I see even smallest cases, they do not draft properly the way in which it has to be drafted. Constitutional principles they do not follow. For everything go to court of law, court will strike down. What is this? There is a role for the court on policy matters. Okay. Thank you very much, my friends.
Thank you, sir.
Once again, we will meet sometime afterwards.
Thank you, sir. This brings an end to the session. Sir, on behalf of the organizers and also on behalf of the participants, I thank you for your time, sir, and your motivational lectures.